Today's video will be about the play Much Ado About Nothing by William Shakespeare. Now, arguably, Shakespeare is perhaps the most important, if not outright the most important author in English language history. We can credit over two-thirds of the modern vocabulary we have as English speakers today based to words and phrases that Shakespeare came up with. Much Ado About Nothing is one of the 36 plays that were first published in 1623 as part of his first folio. Now, this is going to be a brief overcap and overview of Much Ado About Nothing. We don't have a lot of records about Shakespeare's life that has survived in his own hand, but we can best guess that this play was written somewhere in between 1596 and 1599. This was the latter part of his heyday, and this is a comedy specifically. And if we're using dramatic terms, it is a comedy is a play in which a happy ending happens. Okay, this is where things that could possibly go wrong simply don't, and this is where a lot of humor is used as well. Specifically, Much Ado About Nothing is the precursor of the romantic comedy. Now, romantic comedies are absolutely everywhere. These are films these are films and plays that are produced for the sense of having two people or more people fall in love, and everything is just hilarious about that. Just like Heaven, 10 Things I Hate About You, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, and Notting Hill are all incredibly real examples of modern day romantic comedies. Now, for example, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days stars Matthew McConaughey. I will just leave it at that. Now, Much Ado About Nothing takes place in a town called Messina in Italy during the 16th century. The very first scene, we realize that the Prince of Aragon is coming to Messina after a grand battle involving the prince's brother, and that Claudio, who is a count and a very dedicated person to the Prince of Aragon's inner circle, has done very well and is seeking to earn honor to himself in some way, shape, or form. Now, there are a whole bunch of underlying themes that will happen in this play. For example, women's rights during the 1500s is talked about extensively. Women simply didn't have very many rights at all during this time period. Society was dominated by men. Girls had to obey their dads and then their husbands, and that was about it. And a lot of times, marriages were out of necessity as opposed to love and kindness. And most importantly, a woman must be chaste or pure when she is married. A monumental conniption happens when the character hero, who I'm going to talk about in a little bit, it allegedly finds out that she is not chaste, but that's an entirely different conversation. Now, Shakespeare uses a whole bunch of different language techniques in his writing with Much Ado About Nothing. It starts off with the pronunciation of the last word of the title. Shakespeare might have actually said noting, which means to observe or to watch, which is a play on words saying that he is just simply observing these characters do their own thing and cause massive amounts of misunderstandings, which causes absolute mayhem as the plot carries forward. So be on the lookout for so if you want to watch this play or read this play, you'll have to be on the lookout for that. Now, there are 4 themes and ideas that come up with this, or that happen during this play. Trickery and deception. That's where people are just incessantly trolling each other to try to get the others to look angry or foolish or stupid and all that type of stuff. You also see self-deception and delusion, love and marriage, and status and honor. Now, this is an underlying plot because the grand battle that I initially just talked about was actually between the prince, whose name was Pedro, and his illegitimate brother John. John was very salty about being illegitimate and decided to rebel against his uh, brother. Now, you will see uh, real quick the different characters that are actually going to be taking place in this play. From left to right on your screen, you will see Don John, Don Pedro, Beatrice, Benedict, Hero, and Claudio. This is a picture from the 19 from the mid 1990s film version of this play. Yes, you see Keanu Reeves. Yes, you see Denzel Washington, Emma Thompson, Kenneth Branagh, Kate Beckinsale, and Robert Sean Leonard. Now, to give a brief overview of the characters themselves, the first person that we are introduced to is Leonato. His daughter is Hero. Leonato's big brother is Antonio. Antonio's daughter is Beatrice. Okay? Now, one of Leonato's best friends on the face of the planet is a guy by the name of Don Pedro. Don Pedro's illegitimate brother is Don John. Now, part of Don Pedro's companions during this battle were Claudio and Benedict. Benedict is in love with Beatrice, and Claudio is in love with Hero. Which is kind of a convoluted bit of a mess that happens as well, but things will get cleared up quite soon, especially when we start talking about the plot itself. Leonato is announced that some of his friends are coming home from battle, Don Pedro's men specifically. Now, upon first glance, from when they get to Leonato's house, Claudio looks up to Hero in the balcony and is instantly smitten. Now, that's one couple, that's one pairing that happens right then and there. There also appears to be a whole lot of backstory between Beatrice and Benedict because they instantly start insulting each other left, right, and center. I mean, you can tell that there is some romantic tension there. As the courtship happens between Claudio and Hero, they realize that from 1 week from the time that Claudio looks at Hero for the first time, they decide to get married. Well, that leads to Beatrice and Benedict instantly falling in love with each other simply because Don Pedro needed something to do between the day that Claudio proposed through Don Pedro to Hero. They had a week for that wedding. Well, Don John is upset and decides to just cause mayhem and just go berserk in this society for the time being. He actually has one of his henchmen sleep with Hero's maid and have Hero's maid call out the name Hero. So that means that Claudio now publicly accuses Hero of cheating on him during their wedding ceremony. Hero's reputation is destroyed, but they decide to pretend that she died to hide her away, to say this actually didn't happen. Well, Don John's buddies who oversaw with this actually ended up getting arrested and confessed to everything that actually happened. So by this point, Don John says, "Nope, I'm blown. I'm out. I'm done. Goodbye. See you later." Well, Robert Sean Leonard's Claudio, if you watch the film version of this, he needs to tell the entire city of Messina that his accusations against Hero were null and void, and Claudio actually says, "Hey, I'm going to marry your niece, Leonato," because Leonato says that she looks a lot like Hero. Well, it turns out that mystery niece that no one has ever heard of is actually Hero back to life. So, when all is said and done, Beatrice and Benedict end up together, and Claudio and Hero end up together. Now, you have to realize that the fact that Beatrice and Benedict got married in the first place is because of just the sheer amount of dislike and hatred that these two seem to have for each other. We're designed to be alternating between feeling sorry for him and being completely in love with Beatrice and vice versa. And Keanu Reeves' character is just terrible at that point. And on that terrible disappointment, it is time to end for this. This is Much Ado About Nothing.